second channel, the first one. I'm going to be talking about how I'm just disappointed in Chennai for kind of doubling down on this. Like, I am kind of disappointed in Chennai. That being said, look, we can go into this all we want. I don't think we can expect Stephen A. Smith to be any better. I don't think we can expect the media to be any better. Because look, I'm going to be real. Every one of us relies on Caitlin Clark, and no matter how much everyone wants to say it, she is. But yeah, look, Stephen A. Smith is who he is. He is who he is. Like, he knows sports to a surface level, and he does have relationships with players, and he works his ass off. He works his ass off. Like, I gotta be real. Stephen A. Smith, like, if you're looking at the likes of him and Skip Bayless, like, there is a lot from a work.
Caitlin Clark stood at a podium and said something that should have ended a conversation. Instead, it started 3 new ones. Here's what she actually said, in plain terms. She's tired of every headline being about one flagrant foul. She said the constant fixation on that single moment is unfair to a league full of talented players having a great season, and that if the only story anyone wants to tell is the controversy, it's exhausting to be the center of it. You'd think that would be the end of it, a star player asking for some balance. But if you understand how sports media actually works, you already know what happened next, because the reaction wasn't agreement. It was almost a shrug. Let's back up and get the facts straight, because they matter here. On June 24th, the Indiana Fever lost a nail-biter to the Phoenix Mercury, 111-109. During a scramble for a loose ball, Mercury forward Alyssa Thomas made contact with Clark's throat with a closed fist. No foul was called live. It wasn't even flagged for review in the moment. A day later, the league reversed course, upgraded it to a flagrant 2, and suspended Thomas for 1 game. Fever head coach Stephanie White didn't hold back, calling the missed call inexcusable. Clark didn't speak publicly again until July 3rd, more than a week later. And when she did, her message wasn't outrage. It was fatigue. Her point was simple: that one play deserved a day of discussion, not weeks of being the only thing anyone talks about while the rest of the league goes unnoticed. And almost the second she said it, the conversation got louder, not quieter. One of the loudest voices belongs to a former WNBA All-Star turned television analyst, who had already argued on air days earlier that Thomas plays a physical style and that Clark sometimes overreacts to contact. Her take was that the suspension was more about public backlash to a viral clip than the full context of the play. Now hold that name in your head, because there's a detail about her that changes how this whole thing reads, and I'll get to it. Here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. A media commentator who watches the league closely made an argument worth sitting with. He said plainly that the media doesn't actually care what Clark wants covered, because covering what she wants isn't what earns clicks. Her plea to move on became, within minutes, a brand new headline about her plea. She didn't slow the cycle down. She accidentally fed it. And it's not just people criticizing her. That's the part that makes this messier than a simple media versus Clark story. One prominent national host has actually been one of her loudest defenders, calling the resentment toward her unfair, and saying the league has failed to protect its biggest asset. Meanwhile, other commentators lined up on the opposite side, backing the idea that the reaction to the foul was overblown. Both sides are arguing about Clark. Both sides are generating attention by doing it. A defense of her and an attack on her both funnel back to the same result: more eyes on the same one player. That commentator made another blunt point. Ask most national sports personalities to name 20 current WNBA players and they'd struggle. Ask for 10 and you'd probably hear a couple of retired legends' names mixed in. That's not a scientific study, it's a jab, but the point underneath it is real. A lot of the loudest opinions about this league come from a shallow well of actual knowledge about it. People know the star. They know the controversy. Everything else gets flattened. If this kind of honest, no-spin breakdown of WNBA storylines is what you come here for, do me a favor and hit subscribe right now. This channel lives on stories exactly like this one, and I've got more breakdowns coming on everything happening around the league this week. Now here's the detail I promised. That skeptical analyst? Her sister happens to be the current president of the WNBA Players Association. Sit with that for a second. It doesn't make her basketball opinion wrong on its face. Plenty of her specific arguments about officiating and game context are defensible on their own. But when you're that closely tied to the leadership of the very union whose most valuable member is the player you're publicly questioning, people are going to read motive into it, fair or not. And here's where the story gets self-aware in an interesting way. The same commentator who laid all of this out turned the mirror on himself. He admitted that he, too, mostly talks about Clark because Clark is what gets watched. He said he can't fairly criticize the big networks for ignoring the rest of the league if he's not consistently covering it either. That kind of honesty is rare in this conversation, and it's worth acknowledging. But he also drew a real distinction. The bigger responsibility sits with major networks that have the budget and airtime to cover the whole league without sacrificing anything. Independent creators are chasing rent money. ESPN and its peers are chasing convenience. They could absolutely spotlight more of the league's stars without losing a single dollar. They mostly don't, because the math is simple. The rest of the league is a gamble, and Clark is a guaranteed number. Which brings us to the real, uncomfortable conclusion here. It was never really about whether the media asterisk could cover more of the WNBA. It's that nothing else pays like she does. So where does this actually go from here? Even in the middle of all this noise, Clark was named Eastern Conference Player of the Month for June. She's expected to sit out this Sunday's matchup against the defending champion Las Vegas Aces with a lingering back issue, with an eye on returning for the back-to-back games on the 8th and 9th. And when she steps back on the floor, the cameras will swing right back to her instantly. The exact cycle she asked everyone to break, restarting on schedule. Here's the hard truth she ran into this week. You can be the most powerful, most watched player your sport has ever produced, and still not have enough power to make people look anywhere else. So here's the real question. Is Clark right that the media is shortchanging the rest of the league? Or is she asking the business that made her a star to do the one thing it literally can't afford to do? Drop your take in the comments, because I genuinely read every one of them. If this breakdown made sense of a story everyone's been talking past each other on, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you at the next tip-off.